Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Hey there, Mother Clucker, Library Lizard. How you guys doing tonight? Hope everything is going well. I am on baby watch, basically. Hey there, W3, WT3. Um, my daughter is in the hospital, and she is going through labor right now. My wife, Mother Refugee, is up there, and that's my daughter and her family is there, and then my wife is there, and that's all they allow in. I'm not allowed to be there, so I've just been kind of hovering around the house and the phone all day. So if something I get a call or something, I got to bail out of the live stream because of that. I will let you guys know. But right now, everything is kind of stable. But she did have a few complications throughout the day today, so they're working through that. But other than that, everybody's doing all right because I know everybody is kind of has been asking me about it. So I wanted to let you know how everything is going. You know, it's part. I'm kind of really glad now that I'm going to be a grandfather. I'm really glad now that I've done all these videos over the years because now there is, there's electronic means, all the little tips and tricks and stories and history and everything. I got that out on the internet now so people can benefit from that, including people in my own family. So there's the kind of my spiel on that. Hey, Monkey Food Garden, how you doing? Sunset Heritage, Happy Girl, Old Spice, Anonymous Prepper. I guess I'm enjoying my weekend, sort of. It got colder today. Bad Bobber, Winston Williams, Jen Mag, Mr. Bumble Hill, Sharon, Patriot Preacher, whatever, 3AD Scout. Um, Temperature dropped this afternoon here pretty good, and our friends on the Upper Peninsula, they are getting snow, and they're in actually a bit of a snow belt, so they're expecting quite a bit of snow. In fact, some of those areas are expecting up to 12 inches by Monday, so that's a pretty significant snow. I mean, if we get 12 inches of snow down here, it's a pretty good size snow event. As a general rule, though, in about the last 20 years, go back 25 years. There's only been about 3 or 4 times that we got over 12 inches of snow in a pop. And I had some people say to me on like my one of my get home bag videos about snowshoes. How come nobody ever talks about snowshoes? Well, I've got snowshoes. If you look back behind me there, over uh, right there are my snowshoes. So I've got snowshoes, but I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually used them because we only get snow enough for a couple of days a year where you could actually use them. You need at least about 12 inches of snow to make those work. Anything else is they're more of a pain than they actually help. But I told them, I said, you know, if I do have some decent snow this year, I will do a snowshoe video because there is some kind of ins and outs, especially to those old school snowshoes that are the sinew and the varnish and stuff and the wood, not like the new synthetic material and aluminum and stuff. Those things you got to take out, you got to dry, you got to make sure that you take care of them, and you got to strap them up and stuff. So I kind of wanted to let you guys all know that. Sunset, yeah, my daughter is at the hospital right now. She is in labor, but no baby yet. They had some complications this afternoon, so they're trying to work through that. They won't let anybody in. So basically, dad is in there and mother refugee is there. That is all who they're allowing in. And I would have to literally sit out in my truck or down in like the overall waiting room for the hospital. I couldn't really do anything there except sit there anyway. So mother refugee said it's best if I just stay home. So I stayed home today and did a few things and got some stuff done. So Sunset, YouTube wouldn't let me get in on this live. Tried for 2 minutes. Well, that sucks, Sunset. And YouTube sent me this apologetic, but not really apologetic because I did that TMAG video and they're like, oh, well, we reviewed your video and it's just not worthy of monetization and distributing on the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of why I added on there. YouTube doesn't like any video that has anything to do about, the Second Amendment or firearms, or even though they are just they are part of preparedness to a certain extent. Almost everybody I know that is into preparedness also has some type of firearm, and the two communities overlap a lot, and but it's just not politically correct to talk about that stuff, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, because then they're not only tapping you against the Second Amendment, they're tapping you against the First, because you can't talk about what you want to talk about. And that was one thing that really always used to upset me about corporate America. They always set them rules in there. Oh, well, you can't discuss this or that because that's against company policy. And I'm like, since when does my rights enshrined in the Constitution, since when are they subservient to whatever the corporate policy of the day is? I always thought that that was complete and total BS. So anyway, there's enough of my rant. I should get back in on the chat here, see how you guys are doing. Essential Tam, how you doing? Went from 70 to snow around Monday here. Anonymous Prepper, yeah, it's going to get well below freezing tonight, I believe. I was changing out batteries in my trail cam, and it got really cold this afternoon. Sunset Heritage, yeah, it's definitely cold here. It wasn't so bad this morning. It was probably 50 this morning, but I'll bet you it's right now outside. I bet you it's right around 35 out, and that's the temperature's been dropping all day. Update on my surgery. My knee is very stiff when I wake up in the morning. The pain is starting to subside as long as I don't overdo it. Now, today I stood, I did housework, I did the normal things. I washed dishes, did a few loads of laundry, did some baking, shot a couple of videos. I had some stuff out in the shop to do. I went out and I did that. I had to get rid of some garbage and stuff. And about the 4 hour mark of doing stuff, my knee said it's time to go sit down for a little bit. And that's kind of how it's been. Other than that, it's been healing. I got a lot smaller bandage on it than I had before, but they made a couple of holes in it. So, Rip Curl, a good T-Mag review video today. I wish they could have molded metal feed lips. And I don't know why they can't put metal feed lips on them, Rip Curl, because on the Gen 3 AK mags, the locking tabs are metal. They can form the metal into them. So I don't know why they can't do some type of upgrade on them. But you know what? I had I read a lot of negative reviews on them with this and that. And they didn't work and they malfunctioned. Mine didn't malfunction at all, man. They spit them things out 100 miles an hour. So, and I had my pew pew warm enough so it was warmed up. I mean, I had smoke coming off of it, so I can't say that it didn't. They work just as good as any other PMag that I've ever tried. I literally have every version of PMags. I got the Gen 1s that I bought back like in 2007, 2008. I got a bunch of Gen 2s. I got Gen 2s with Windows. I got Gen 3s. I got Gen 3s with Windows. And now I've got T-Mags. Plus I've got the AK ones, both the Gen 1s and the Gen 3s with the metal. I think they're Gen 1s and Gen 3s. I don't think there's anything in between them, but the Gen 1s with the plastic feet or the plastic locking lugs, I've never had a problem with them either. They've never broke or sheared off, even like winter camping, because I've taken my AK winter camping a bunch of different times when it's sat outside in 20-degree temperatures all night, and I never had one problem with them. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. The only Magpul stuff that I've ever had problems with, I had some AK accessories that I purchased, and I was going to switch some stuff out. I actually had some of that stuff break, but I've never had any of the Magpul magazines break or give me really any problems. But anyway, that's my deal on that. Library Lizard, low of 17 tonight. I think we're probably going to be hitting about mid upper 20s tonight, which is sort of a harder freeze. Following the light, Cody Johnson, how you doing from Iowa? Been here a few 20-degree mornings in northeast Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania does get cold. I've known some people out there already that said that was pretty cold. Monkey Food Garden, hard to imagine a fall garden up here in Michigan. You can do a fall garden. I mean, like I had those beds. I've done them this year. I didn't do it though, but had too much going on with the surgery and stuff. But I've done beds, covered them up, planted like either lettuce or spinach in there and just let it go. And because they're covered and the ground doesn't freeze, cover it with plastic so it's like a little miniature greenhouse or a hot box. When you get them sunny days in the winter, that warms up the ground, keeps the ground from freezing, and the plants, they just don't grow as fast. They kind of go dormant, but they don't get they don't get a hard freeze in those things, especially if you get a little snow on top of it to give it a little bit more insulation. Then you go out there and you know, cut yourself a salad about Christmas time. And I've done that lots of times. And then there's times I've just left it to see how much it grew. And I never even opened some of them. And then in January, you know, I got regular bunches of spinach and stuff out there. So you can do it. It just, you know, you gotta, and I'm a firm believer, in having plastic rolls of plastic in your preps. That's something a lot of people don't talk about, but multiple types of plastic, like the 3 mil, the 4 mil. Black plastic has its purposes. Clear plastic has its purposes. Clear plastic I use a lot for, you know, like I said, making hot boxes, but then also the clear plastic helps when you're, you know, butchering deer and you're cutting up animals, stuff like that. That stuff comes in handy very much so. It can be used to repair like broken windows, that kind of stuff, the clear stuff. But then the black has its own purposes too. Like if you want to cover up, you want to black your house out, that you got some light on in your house and nobody else does, you want to black your house out, a couple of rolls of Gorilla Tape and some black plastic, you can, you know, half an hour, you can black out your house then. So you're not letting a lot of light out and advertising that you got lights on in your house if nobody else does. So rolls of plastic, everybody should have a couple of rolls of them. And I mean, if you're an apartment, it's small, you don't have a lot of places, you know, keep just a small roll of black plastic around and a roll of duct tape so you can still black those windows out if you want to. Just kind of stuff like that. I think that plastic is good to go. Yeah, I got my Aero Gardens. I don't have them fired up and running right now. If I do, I'm going to fire them up about Christmas time. That's Christmas time, first of the year. That's when I fired them up, and I actually had pretty good luck with the lettuce, the small tomatoes, and the herbs. Especially basil did really well in those. Like I had thyme and then I had like an Asian basil and stuff. They didn't do as good. They didn't do as good in there, but just regular basil, Genovese basil, just rocked it. I mean, I had big old bunches of basil. I could have made like, I had so much basil a couple of times when I did that, I could have made pesto. I had so much basil. Of course, I didn't have pine nuts, but you can use the black walnuts that I got. Black walnuts make pretty good pesto too. And black walnuts I actually used today in one of the videos I was doing for you guys. So that's all good to go. Luke Matthews raised beds did well this year. Secured a house full of old windows. My mother loved old windows. If she could pick up an old window somewhere, that was destined to be a hot box. She'd go and put a couple of 2x6s or 2x8s together and maybe put it a little bit higher on one side, and she'd lay one of them window panels over it, and she'd make her own greenhouses. We used to have them all over the yard when I was like 8, 10, 12 years old. And that's where Mom started a lot of her vegetables in there. She started a lot of vegetables in those homemade hot boxes. Freedom Nugget, yep, tons of plastic. I hear those Subaru vehicles last forever. I have never owned a Subaru. My neighbor swears by Subarus. He's had like 2 of them. You know, we've lived here almost 30 years at this place, and he had 2 different Subarus, and he loved them. And when he was working and stuff, he drove that Subaru back and forth because it was all-wheel drive. And then he's the guy in town here that has the EMP vehicle. He's got an old Willys Jeep that he doesn't basically do anything with except a couple times a year. He takes it out and we drive around the back field back here and stuff. But yeah, that old Willys Jeep, I don't know, it's probably maybe a 1960, something like that. And it's kind of like a flat red color, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing to have around here. Lows in the 20s here in central New York. I have a lot of plastic rolls, put quite a bit away. And that's too, like tarps and that roll of plastic, man, if you got like a hole in your roof, something happens where you get like a tree falls on a roof and knocks a bit of a hole in, you could patch up some stuff if you have some of that plastic there. Tar paper is another one. Of course, they don't call it tar paper anymore. They call it synthetic felt, but anything like that where you could patch a window or a roof or a door, that stuff is great to have around. Even some lumber, you know, if you got some 2x4, some 2x6s, maybe a sheet or 2 of OSB board to patch something up, that's not a bad thing to have around. I mean, that takes up a little bit of space, and I don't have a lot here, but I got a couple sheets of OSB, and I got some 2x4s, 2x6s, that kind of stuff, in case I've got to patch something up, because you never know. And then, of course, screws and nails. Screws are kind of more important now than nails. Everybody gets going to the contractors all use nail guns, and then all the do-it-yourself people, they all use some type of screw and screw gun anymore, which is good. The screws are a lot stronger than the nails are, but I have a little bit of everything here, and I don't have a nail gun. I got plenty of screw guns, but I don't have any nail guns, even though I do have a air compressor. But keeping stuff to repair like that is kind of important. And I said, if you're living in an apartment or something, that's not maybe as important, but something like having a good heavy staple gun so you can utilize that plastic, and then some gorilla tape, something like that. That's just real small stuff, maybe some smaller nails with larger heads on them, hammer, keep that stuff in a box, a couple razor blade knives, channel lock, a crescent wrench, these basic things. Even if you're living in an apartment and you have no mechanical or carpentry skills whatsoever, those a few things right there can fix and take care of a lot of basic problems that might pop up, especially if there's nobody to rely on to do that stuff. We kept all the extras from our building in our greenhouse. That plastic is durable, comes in handy a bunch of times. Monkey Food Garden. Yeah, like I said, my mom, she would get the plastic actually from the old lumber yard, and it was on a big roll. I mean, it was in a box probably about that square, and it was like a 4 mil plastic, and I don't know, it was like 200 feet long or whatever. It was huge, but that's how she would buy it. And she would buy black plastic like that too. Another thing that we use black plastic for, if there was a spot that mom wanted to make into a garden bed or plant something there, she would take a piece of that black plastic, she would cut it, weight it down around the edges, and she would leave it for like 6 weeks. Well, then that heat, that would warm up, that would heat that all up, and that would kill all the weed seeds and everything, and all the grass, everything that was growing there. That would kill that up. Then she would pull that black plastic up, and then she would work that up, and then that took care of any sod or anything that was in that area where she would want to work up. Oh, got a ding message. Nope, nothing too crazy. She would have a spot there where she could plant stuff, and that was the way that she would do that. She wouldn't just work it up and try to fight with the roots and stuff. She would actually kill all that stuff naturally, so it would just decompose back in. So that's kind of how that worked. Oh yeah, zip ties too. That's another thing. And zip ties are kind of ubiquitous anywhere. You can find them things anywhere in a bunch of different sizes. I mean, I got some zip ties here that are probably about this wide that I've actually used to like hang no trespassing signs and stuff, because I've got one gate on my property that I hung a no trespassing sign on. And I just use those real wide zip strips, and it's been hanging there for like 10 years and they're still doing good. Wire is important too. A lot of things can be fixed with wire too. You can wire stuff up. Wire is kind of like the grandfather to zip ties. And if you have something that has a lot of heat in it where you're afraid the zip ties are going to be affected by the heat, that's when you need kind of that heavy galvanized wire. And then too, if you get heavy enough wire, you can make cold frames and hot boxes out of that too, and then put your plastic over top that and take something as simple as clothespins on the top of that to hold that, and then you got a spot where you can grow food. Hey, Kathy's Tube, good to see you. Kathy's Tube is one of my good subscribers. She's always commenting on my videos. Good to see you, and I appreciate you being here, Kathy. Willie's with a PTO. I don't think it's got a PTO. It's kind of looks like a little Jeep. It looks like an old, like the old school Land Rovers with the tire on the hood. That's kind of what it looks like. Uncle Bumble, how you doing there, sir? Uncle Bumble is in the house. I gave Uncle Bumble some ReadyWise chili mix, but I don't know if he's tried it yet. Any feedback on the ReadyWise chili mix there, Uncle Bumble? Hey, Jenny, how you doing? Potato Head, I'm always here listening. I appreciate you being here. No, not yet. Oh, well, I'm still waiting to hear for it. I got one here, so if it's any good, I expect to hear from you. I'm sure you'll let me know. That ReadyWise, I got that down at that Ann Arbor Arms. They had it was a really cool store. If you get down to Ann Arbor, look up that Ann Arbor Arms. I had a good time talking with those guys in there, but it was sort of like a gun shop, but then it was also a prepper store. They had all kinds of trauma gear in there. They had packs. They had a lot of webbing. They had a lot of stuff like freeze-dried food, a lot of stuff into the prepper aspect of it they had there. It was pretty cool to see all that stuff. Mechanics wire, yeah, wire. Mom used to get wire, really heavy wire. I mean, wire that was almost as big around probably as a 22 shell. And I actually do still have a coil of that here. And I have to cut it with bolt cutters, but I'll tell you what, that stuff has come in handy so many times over the years. When I got that, I used up. I'm going to look up to get another coil of that because it's been very good. Hey there, Hawkmeyer. Hey, Henry. Wire the muffler hanger, yeah. And the old timers would not only use wire, they would take a piece of tin can if they had a rusted out spot on their muffler, they would put that over top of it to close that hole up, and then they would wire it up. Seen that quite a bit too. It's just that kind of that old school improvisation that you don't see as much anymore. You know, everybody wants stuff that's new, and then in 3 years you throw it in the landfill. Hey, MR, just wanted to say my grandma's still around and I'm learning everything I can from her. That's great, Tyler. Yeah, that's great. I mean, the old folks, they love to share what they know and their experiences, and not a lot of people listen to them. And that's absolutely the wrong way to go about stuff. Mikhail Kalashnikov, I did that once with a coffee can, held up for about a year. Yeah, I tell you what, coffee cans, any type of soup can, chicken wire was another thing that was used because chicken wire was like nets. So if you needed more than wire just in one spot, they'd cut a square chicken wire and wire that up, and that did the same thing. I've used wire out of a notebook to wire up a muffler on. I did not know that, Uncle Bumble, but I would think that stuff would be pretty soft, but I guess if you used it and it worked, that was good to go. A lot of people, there's just so many things out there that when I was a kid growing up, it just didn't get thrown out. Like another thing was any type of metal, anything like I get olive oil in metal cans or like a gallon metal can. Boy, that would have never got thrown out when I was a kid. They would have made that into something. They would have took that can, turned it sideways, and they would have took the top out of it and rolled the sides back and made a dish pan or something out of that. That's just how, because even back like in the early 70s, there was still a lot of old folks around that they just didn't waste anything. And that is probably the biggest thing, when I've talked to old people over the years here now, is how much waste we have now compared to what they went through. They didn't waste anything. And I was watching this other video. It was on Facebook, and it's like it's an Italian grandparents, and they made prosciutto with a hog leg. They had a hog leg there, and they cut down into the along the bone. They packed that all with salt. They rubbed the whole thing down with salt, and they literally hung that hog leg up in a cold room down in the basement, just left it. And then after so many weeks, they brought it down again, and they rubbed it all down with hot pepper and paprika and did the same thing. They packed hot pepper and paprika down in and around that bone, and they hung the thing for like a month, like 11 months or whatever. It was like 12 months the thing hung, and they showed the finished product, and it had darkened whatever he had. And he goes, "Oh, there's a little mold on it." And he scrubbed all that off and rinsed all the salt and everything off of it. And they cut pieces of that off and ate it right off the leg, and it looked like it was prosciutto. I mean, it was that red look that what prosciutto is, and they were cutting thin, and they were eating it, and it cured with just the salt and the low humidity inside of that cold room down in the basement. And that's something I have never done. That anytime I've ever made anything like that, like ham or Canadian bacon or smoked picnics or anything like that, we always smoked it. We never just dry cured it with nothing. But that got me thinking, maybe someday I'm going to have to try something like that. And there's another sausage that I would like to try to make, but I've never made it, and that's like a salami, because a salami is actually a fermented sausage. And I've read where they've actually used yogurt as the culture to mix in with that meat to start that ferment, because that salami is fermented and then dried, and that's what salami is. And I thought that was actually kind of a neat thing too. But I don't have any old people or any real world experience, because we didn't have any Italians around here. Around here, it was just always Germans, Hungarians, Belgians, stuff like that. But so I got all that German influence in me. But that Italian, some of that Italian food preservation is pretty darn interesting to me. Hey there, Hawkmeyer. Didn't last forever, just had to get home. Yeah, sometimes that's all you need is to get home, eh, Uncle Bumble? Any glass containers or egg cartons? Egg cartons always got saved when we were kids too. Egg cartons because we had our own chickens and stuff. We live in a throwaway society. Unfortunately, that's very true. KP Heathen, how you doing? My grandma would use plastic bread bags for snow boots. Oh yeah, and we use bread. Grandma never threw out a bread bag. We had a drawer in the kitchen that had a bread bag with bread bags in it. When a bread bag got empty, they shook out the crumbs on that. That got folded up and put in that other bag, and that's what we used for like sandwiches, or if we were taking a packed lunch or something with us, like Ziploc bags. I feel like I'm a rich person because I've got like 3 or 4 different sizes of Ziploc bags here in my preps because I use them for a bunch of different things, whether it's stuff in my packs or, meat when we freeze things or whatever. I got like pint, I got gallon, and I got 2 gallon Ziploc bags here. And then we got some of the little thinner sandwich ones that still have the little zip on top of it. But I feel like I'm rich because I have those things here because you know what? Mom never used Ziploc bags. I mean, she even like the heavier bread bags. Like when we butcher chickens, she would cut a chicken in half and put a half a chicken in like 2 bread bags. She would put one bread bag around it, wrap it really tight, and then slide it in another one. Same thing. Take the twist tie, put it on. She'd take a piece of masking tape, put that on there, and she'd write on there with one of those black wax crayon pencils. You know what the date was, whatever, and that would get stacked down in the freezer. That's how they did it. Like I said, plastic bags did not get thrown out. Uh, oh yeah, bread bags. A lot of people did the boot bread bag thing. Even when I was in grade school, I can remember that kids coming in like that. During World War II, you couldn't find a cardboard box. I believe that. I believe that in a second. Hey, Michigan Silverback. Oh yeah, that drawer of bread bags. Like I said, that was a big thing. My wife's uncle, God rest his soul, he was the second. He was the second wave on Omaha Beach on D-Day, and he survived the landing, and then he was wounded at St. Lo, and then he went to Scotland, and he was in the hospital in Scotland. And then when he transferred back to mainland Europe after he had healed from his wound, he he was like a military police, but he like guarded prisoners of war. That's what he did after he was shot. But he told me that that was the first time in his life that he ever seen a plastic bag was on D-Day. They gave them all a plastic bag to put their rifle in, and he said that that was the first time he had ever seen a plastic bag. So like there's that one scene in Saving Private Ryan where Tom Hanks gets to the beach and he rips the plastic bag open and he gets his weapon out, and that's actually not that far from the truth. That was pretty accurate to what it actually was from what we heard. But anyway, that was my wife's uncle. One of the little stories that he told um, before he passed away. Hey there, Christine. How you doing in Connecticut? Newspaper in the boots. Newspaper was another thing. We had a huge we never threw out newspapers. Sometimes there would be the church would do newspaper drives, but mom would use newspapers too to start fire in the wintertime. Not that we started a lot of fires, because once the fire was going, a lot of times you didn't have to restart it. They would just stoke it. But sometimes if you'd go away for a few hours or something, or have to go to the city, um, the fire would go out and it'd have to restart it. But mom never we never discarded that stuff. Like I said, the newspaper drives took some, and what we used. Another thing mom would do is she would take, what do I got here that's round that I can show you guys this? Reach up here. It was pretty popular to make to put your plants in little paper, put your seed starts in little paper deals. She would take something round like this. It was usually some type of like jar, like an old jar that was an odd size, and they would fold and roll paper around this. So they would lay paper down and they would roll the paper up. They would fold the bottom up, and then they would fold the edge around the side, and then they would slide the can out of that. And then you had like a paper cylinder, And of course, they would do it with a couple rolls of paper. Then they would put their seed starting mix in that, and that's where they would plant their seed. And then they would put that like in another container. And then when that plant grew and, got about this big, they took that whole thing, newspaper and all, and that got planted in the garden. And you didn't have to like transplant it or anything like that. And that paper would just naturally deteriorate and just go into the ground. That was something too that newspaper got used for. And then two for storing apples and pears. I've got videos on that with the apples. They would take the apples, they would wrap them individually in newspaper and pack them single layers in boxes and then keep them down in the basement where it was cold. And I've done that here so many times. I've had apples yet in May. Of course, you lose some, but it's a viable technique, and it works good, and it's basically free. All you need is a few flat boxes to put the apples in and the newspaper. But newspaper was a good resource as well. Another thing, people, it doesn't it doesn't cost a lot of money really to prep if you know how to utilize some of these techniques. And that's kind of the big thing that bothers me about prepping is it's become this huge money thing. And it was ways to live economically when I was a kid growing up. Stuff like newspapers, worn out clothes were made into mops, or they were made into crazy quilts. Everything had some type of value and was used and reused, and there was a lot less waste. I mean, you did have some waste, but then that stuff got composted or it got turned into, something else. If there was a sheet of metal or a sheet of tin laying around, that got saved because maybe there'd be a hole in the chicken roof that had to be repaired or something. So it was a different world. Now everybody wants to throw everything out, go buy new, and then in 2 years that's junk that gets thrown out. Everybody wants new again. Everybody's walking around wanting to buy new stuff, and a lot of times the new stuff isn't as good as the old stuff. So hey, Washbourne Billy, how you doing? Metal garbage cans for storage, not garbage, kept critters away. Oh yeah, mom had two garbage cans where she kept chicken feed in, and she'd kept like crack corn in one, and then she'd keep chop or oats in the other. Waiting on the coal, just pull the last tomato plant. I don't know, because we're so close to the lake here. We usually got about a week leeway. If I drive 15 miles from here inland away from the lake, there'll be a hard freeze. And then where we're at here, it might be 34 because we're so close to the lake here. The lake water kind of holds the heat and radiates it out and gives us, I'd say, about another week to 10 days usually in a growing season. So if the rest of the area around here gets a hard freeze, we still got a little bit more time to get our stuff done outside. I keep birdseed in the deck and a metal trash can, run a chain through it, so keep the raccoons. Yeah, raccoons can get everything. They're smart too. Very creative use of newspaper, Sunset. Yeah, like I said, that's just stuff off the top of my head. I suppose if I really think hard on it, I could probably think of a few more things. But yeah, newspaper was something that didn't get thrown out. Again, that was a resource for something. Hard to find newspaper these days. We still get a local like freebie newspaper that comes in, and it's got like the local ads for the local grocery stores. It still has local want ads. It has stuff like death notices and the notices that they put out for the estate notices and stuff. We still get one of them once a week here, so I still have. So if I want to put some apples away or something like that, I just save those free newspapers that show up in the mail, and when I want them, then I got a little bit of a stack here. Storage is the hardest part of prepping, where to put stuff. Yeah, it gets to a point where you've got every nook and cranny filled up, and then that's when you got to decide, what's worth keeping and what isn't. I notice people are buying used sewing machines like crazy. I've got 2 used sewing machines here, but they haven't been used since mom was alive. I had a treadle one here that I actually gave to a gal that I knew that I worked with for a lot of years. She really liked the old antique stuff, and I really didn't have any use for it. And it was big, took up a lot of space. So I gave that to her. But I still have, mom had it was a Singer, but it was marketed by Joanne Fabrics, and I can't remember the name of it now, but that's the sewing machine that I got here. And then I think there's another old Montgomery Ward sewing machine here. I saved both of those. And then mom had a Janome. And if you know anything about sewing, Janome is kind of a Cadillac brand of sewing machines. And I actually thought that expensive sewing machine shouldn't just sit here in a closet and do nothing. So there was a couple people I knew that did a lot of sewing and a lot of quilting and stuff. And then I ended up selling that to them because I knew they would get the full use out of it. And I kept the kind of the older or the more inexpensive ones here in case I would ever need to use one. I could probably figure out how to use one, but I'd probably have to look on YouTube a little bit how to fill the bobbins and stuff now because that's been in the past so long now. I'd have to look that stuff back up to remember how to do that. But I suppose if I had to make a shirt or something like that, I could probably do it. It'd probably look pretty bad, but I'm pretty sure I could do that. We got enough clothes here that we could use for patterns if we had the material to make that kind of stuff. I sold everything going full-time RV and we are prepped and on wheels now. That's cool. A lot of people do that nowadays. Like I said, I don't know if I told you that in that other live stream this week, but there was a truck in one of the local businesses here. I say truck, it was actually a Jeep on a four-wheel drive chassis. It had an Ohio license plate on. I think it was like a big van, one of the really big vans, like the van that's almost to the size of a delivery truck, but it's still a regular van. And I had a pretty good idea that they were either up here hunting or doing something like that, or they were some kind of full-time RVer or stealth camper or something like that, because it all had all the trappings of that. But yeah, that's becoming more and more popular. I know places up in the UP too, you pull in and there'll be campers or vans or stuff like that sitting there now that where people just go up there and they live. I fix sewing machines for a hobby. That's cool. Yeah, a good sewing machine repair person, mom said, was very hard to find. We had somebody in the county here, but it was literally on the opposite side of the county, and she would go over there every so often to have her stuff kind of tuned up. But it was a kind of a day trip. We live in a pretty big county here. I've got an old Montgomery Ward sewing machine. I don't remember mom ever having too much problem with that. She had more problems with that Joanne Fabrics one than she did with the Montgomery Ward. Oh, I can't Library Lizard. I can only imagine how cheap the sewing machines are now because everything else has gotten cheap. It's probably got all kinds of lights and bells and whistles, but then it's kind of not worth a crap. Singer hand crank sewing machine. The ones around here were always the foot treadle ones, and then the sewing machine went down into it so you could use it as like a table or something, and then the sewing machine would come up out of it. That's the one that we had here. That's the one that I had given away, but it was just so big I didn't know what to do with it, and it took up so much room in the garage. Singer Sewing Machine Company did make 1911s during World War II. Yeah, that's Singer. And Remington Rand that's kind of the one they only made like what, 500 or 1,000 or something like that. That's like the really rare one. I've actually got a quilt here that my mom started for me, and she never finished before she got Alzheimer's and passed away. But that's still here. One of these days, I'm going to have to talk to one of the church groups or something around here, see if I can get them to finish that quilt for me, because mom never quite got that one done. YouTube has great vids on sewing machine how to. That's good to know, Michigan Silverback. Like I said, I would have to check it out. I have heard that Husqvarna makes them too. But oh gosh, what was the other brand? There was another really high-end brand like Janome too. They actually had a store, but I can't remember what the name of it was anymore. But that was another one. Mom would always drag me in there. I was like 10 years old. What does a 10-year-old boy do in a sewing machine? A high-end sewing machine store. I just kind of sat there and tried not to get into trouble. I despise the new gray Singer heavy duty sewing machines. They're junk. I would believe that. I would believe that in a heartbeat. How is everybody? Bernina. You know what? I don't remember Monkey Food Garden. I don't remember what the name of it was, but there was another one other than Janome that was high end at the time. So how is everything looking, you guys, with the whole Snap deal? Because that was another thing. I don't want to say that it got crazy, but it did. The grocery stores were stupid busy leading up to November 1st. So I think there was a certain amount of buying that was going on because people knew they weren't going to have any money on that. And then they said that they did the Supreme Court like stayed the money that was released. But I've had reports here in Michigan that the state of Michigan released some money today, actually, this morning or last night, however you want to look at it. But I haven't had a chance to get to the city now, so I don't know how crazy and stuff the stores are. But I'm wondering now that if that because this happened. This snap thing has happened once. If that hasn't changed people's mindsets a little bit, to be a little bit more frugal when they get those benefits and not just kind of blow that money. So I'm kind of watching to see if there's going to be a change in behavior because of this going on. Because you know what? If this happened once, I'm thinking it could happen again because the powers that be have seen how everybody react to that stuff. But all I can say about it is it was very busy. All the stores around here were just crazy busy leading up to that November 1st. So I just wanted to mention that too before I forgot about that. 85 greetings from Cadillac. How's things up in Cadillac? No change here in Louisiana. Partially funded for November. It was supposed to be 50% here in Michigan as of today, but I don't know how that stay worked. I thought they downloaded that all at the same time, so people already got some money, whatever. But um, nobody in the stores until 2 days ago, and then the SNAP was loaded on the cards in Northern California. Yeah, like I said, it was crazy going up to what was it? It was like what 3 or 4 days before Halloween. I went to one of the local big box stores around here. It was like in the middle of the afternoon. It was packed, just packed with people. I'm like, this is like a Wednesday or something. And it was like a Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and I couldn't believe how ridiculously busy that it was. No issues Saturday night at the Dollar General. That's good to hear. Nothing happening here regarding SNAP, mostly old people. Viking. That's what the other one was. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that. Viking was the other one that Mom talked about. And like I said, I think that if I remember right, they had their own stores or franchises or whatever. Oh yeah, don't depend on the government for anything. Yeah, the government. Yeah, you don't. I mean, look what the government did for us around here. They sold the bridges to a private company. How I don't even know how that can be legal, but they did. And now everybody's got to pay to drive across a bridge that's bridges that are like the backbone of the local economy here in kind of mid Michigan. So yeah, that's great. And yeah, I don't even know how that can be legal. I've stayed away from stores. I pretty much now since I've had my knee surgery, I've just been hanging right around home here, except when I had to do go to the dentist again. Lucky me. Gasoline is 50% cheaper in Traverse City than it is 35 miles southeast. Gas took a big jump here, but then they raised that gas tax again. So I don't know how that figures into everything. But gas around here is about 320, and like 2 weeks ago it was like 289. So it's a solid 30 cents higher than what it was just a couple of weeks ago. I just got the generator out, ran it, filled it with gas and stable. Should be ready. Awesome. I got to get my generator out and fire it up. I don't think I've had it fired up since maybe July, I think was the last time I had it fired up. So it's time it gets fired up again. But because mine's propane, it doesn't I don't have to worry about it setting so much with like the ethanol and stuff in it. That ethanol is hell on small engines. Uh, Rip Curl, I called Snaps and said if people had to roll over a dollar on their card, they could use it. They also said once it worked out, they would pay retroactive. Backdoor, I heard that Walmarts everywhere are like ghost towns. I don't know, but I know Walmart cut the hours here locally, and that was directly related to people not getting as much SNAP money because that SNAP money is a big chunk of their sales. They want those. They want those sales. I actually did a video talking about that. That's probably been a couple of years now, at least, where those big box stores, they want that government money. They want those people that are on SNAP and EBT and WIC. They want them to come in and shop at those stores, and they actually cater to that stuff. But then, they got to take the downswing too when things like this happen. And I think as things go on and the economy continues to deteriorate, you're going to see more and more of this type of thing. And then too, a lot of people, when they talk about like prepping and what should I do and whatever, one of the things that I firmly believe that if something bad would happen would be rationing. Rationing is, if there's some type of conflict, there's some type of serious event that goes down, especially like some type of conflict over in the Pacific or something, I can see where rationing is going to come back, and it's going to come back electronically, and everybody with their phones, they're going to have an app on the phone that's going to be your ration app, and you're going to go into those electronic cash registers, and they're going to scan a QR code or something on your phone, and it's going to say, well, you're allotted this and this and this, and you can buy this, and if you buy this, you're maxed out, you can't get this. I can see because you look at all the store, look at who has a regular store anymore that just rings somebody up on an old school cash register. Everything is electronic, everything is tracked, records are kept on everything because of point of sale. I can see that being implemented in a heartbeat. And I'll bet you they have 10 different variations of that kind of software already probably just waiting in the wings for something to happen. And that's my firm belief on something like that. It would not surprise me one bit that some type of rationing, whether it's for food, for household items, for medication, I could see rationing coming back in an absolute heartbeat. Walmarts are not busy here. Well, that's good at least. I need a bigger generator, one that I have now, more or less camping, Washburn Billy. Our generator, like I said, about 6,000 watts covers everything that we pretty much need. I need a bigger transfer switch is what I need. My generator's good, but the transfer switch doesn't allow me to run it to the kind of the maximum that I could. I still have a lot of standby power on mine. Tom M., how you doing there? Kathy Tube, haven't heard of any problems in East Tennessee. That's good. Walmart is the number one recipient of SNAP money. I read an article. I believe that. No, don't even have to read an article. I can believe that. Michigan Silverback pulling in from work. Got to say hi to Mama. Hey, you have a good night, Michigan Silverback. Hey, Joe. Haven't been to Walmart in years. That's good. That's good. I go a lot. I try to stay out of there, but sometimes I go to get local intel than I can anything else. I work at Walmart in Northwest Georgia, and we've been crazy busy. I believe that, Judy. What if you only have a landline? And see, that's the problem, Mountain Woodsy. What if you only have a landline? I can see the government saying, well, then you better get a phone. I don't think that if it would get to that point where they would electronically ration stuff, people that don't have means to get on the internet or whatever, they're going to tell you to get on the internet. They're going to tell you you're going to need to go to a family member that does have a phone or something. And I don't think if it comes down to it, I don't think they're going to be nice about it at all, to be honest with you. People always talk about, well, you'll do what you're told when you're in the FEMA camp. Well, there you go. That's sort of, I guess, my interpretation of that. I don't think there's going to be a camp. You're going to be just bound by the way that they distribute goods, and that's going to be their camp, so to speak. If you get how I'm kind of laying that down. Walmart, I live and been checking carts on the way out and never been like that for years. Yeah. Vermont only has 3 Walmarts. The rest are mom and pop stores. Well, that's good. There's still a couple of communities here in Michigan that don't have Walmarts. Two that I can think of. One is Baraga, and Baraga, because that is on the reservation, they won't allow a Walmart to come in there. And another town they wanted to put a Walmart in is Frankenmuth. And Frankenmuth is sort of It's sort of like a German village tourist town. It's in Saginaw County, and it's a big tourist town. But they've tried for years to put a Walmart in there, and they refuse to have it in there. They won't let them put one in, which is good because there's like Myers, there's other businesses around there. They don't, I don't. You see these big box stores. There's just one or two, three of them right on top of one another. You'll have a Meijer, a Target, and a Walmart all within like a half a mile of each other. And I'm like, how many people have to be in that area for the demographic to have enough sales to support three of those gigantic stores all literally in the same square mile? It's crazy. Internet getting way too choppy. Have a good night. Take care, Patricia. Price controls, rationing, martial. Oh yeah, and they wouldn't call it martial law. They'd call it something different. They'd have some other name for it, but that it would be basically a soft martial law if there was some type of rationing. I can see that too. And I mean, it was basically a soft martial law during World War II. There was a lot of restrictions on different things if people really dig into the history of all that stuff. I read somewhere that Snap is 25% of Walmart's businesses for the food section. I believe that to be I would say at least 20. I would say at least 20%. The government will require a smartphone just like China. Yeah, I agree with that, Mother Clucker. I believe I know how they would roll that out or how they would call that. That's how I believe it would be very, very similar to that. The exact reason for the big push to rural high-speed internet, yeah, good enough reason for that. Patriot Preacher, we had such a beautiful fall here in Ohio. When people say everyone is moving to Tennessee, I'll tell you what, we've had so many. Our fall was extremely mild here. We really haven't had any cold weather yet to speak of where we're at here, but and we've had so many people move in here from the city. We're not that far from the big cities here, but we've got the amount of out of state license plates would just blow your mind. People driving through here. So, whatever, prepper, we don't have a Walmart. I hope you never get one either. One Walmart in 3 counties would be plenty enough for me if you ask my personal opinion. They're already telling Social Security recipients that they won't get paper copies of statements. They will have to go online and see. That's the perfect thing. And what else? What did they say? They said that nobody is going to get, like, for their tax refunds next year, nobody's going to get a check anymore. That's all got to be electronic. See, that's all going to that. And how are you going to fight that or stop that? I don't know. If you want your money, you're going to have to just toe the line, because that's just how they're going to try to ram it down everybody's throat. Sunset Heritage. I'm 15 miles east of Frankenmuth. Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, that was a big fight there at Frankenmuth Walmart. They said, "Oh, we're gonna make it all look like the local businesses and stuff, and we're gonna bring in a architect and all this other BS." I know for a fact there would have been businesses in Frankenmuth that would have went out if they would have put a Walmart in there for sure. Yeah, and Library Lizard, you're right. If Snap does come back right before Thanksgiving, stores will be nuts. And I'd like to do a smoked turkey for Thanksgiving this year, at least Christmas. So I got to get I need to get in there and get a turkey because I don't know anybody around here that raised turkeys this year, so I can't buy one from them. But I'll have to get in somewhere and get a turkey so I can. I'd like to have one to smoke, and then I'd like to have one to just have in the freezer. A turkey is a little bit like a ham. If I make a turkey, that's at least 3 meals. That's turkey, that's turkey noodle soup, that's hot turkey sandwiches. A turkey is one of those things. It's just like a ham that you got multiple meals out of one of those birds. Soon USPS won't have much to deliver. The post office has gotten terrible around here, whether it's your deliveries or how long something takes to show up. It's pretty bad. Bernini sewing machines are high end too. I've never heard of Bernini's, but you know what? If Mom had been around, I'm sure she would have. Grass Lake near Jackson fought against the Dollar General a few years ago, but Dollar General's even worse yet than Walmart is. I mean, how many of those stores you got to have? I mean, there's like crossroads out in the country here, like where a couple of major country crossroads come in. There ain't no town anywhere near there, and there'll be a Dollar General sitting on that intersection. And it's like, the Dollar Generals are kind of like what the mini markets and gas stations used to be in the late 80s and the early 90s around here. That was another thing. Most towns had like they'd have two small gas stations, one on either end of town. Then the mini markets and the 24-hour gas stations started popping in and ran all the small one or two pump gas stations, ran them all out of business. Yeah, we're good here. Like I said, I could make a Thanksgiving dinner right here, right now, if you didn't want turkey, because I don't have a turkey, and I don't have it with that deer. Putting that deer in the freezer, I don't have enough room in there for turkey either. But I'm gonna make some room here. But I got everything here but a turkey, so. We had a special turkey at a reduced price with 50 cents, went nuts and spent 120, got a free turkey. Well, that used to be, and I think the local grocery store that's still here by us, they still have if you buy all the fixins for your Thanksgiving dinner, they give you a turkey like for cheap. I don't know what the cents per pound is, but I remember that was pretty universal around here. Even when like 20 years ago, I remember that if you bought, a bag of potatoes, a couple things of stovetop stuffing, a can of sweet potatoes, you bought an apple pie, you bought a can of cranberry sauce, or you bought a bag of cranberries to make your own cranberry sauce, then you'd get the turkey for like 19 cents a pound or something like that. There was always some kind of deal like that they would do around here. And I always thought that was pretty cool. It gave people a little bit of a break for, price wise for Thanksgiving. The big thing that we always did when I was still out on the farm, because we had the big smokehouse, we would smoke like 30 turkeys. And usually we would do like maybe 4 whole turkeys, and then the rest would be those turkey breasts. We would hang them in cloth mesh bags. We would brine them for about 5 days. And then we would hang them, and we would cold smoke them. And they were some of the best turkey I've ever had. That's why I'm going to try to make one here just for us, for our family. Hopefully I can do a video on it for you guys as well. But that smoked turkey was just the bomb, and it's just so simple to do if you have some way to smoke that. But those turkey breasts were always on sale that time of year, so we would always get them when they were on sale, like in November, and then we would make the smoked turkeys in December for Christmas. And then like about the 15th of December, something like that, we would go around and we would deliver all these turkeys to the different, older people and stuff around here. We gave a good majority of those away. But yeah, that was kind of the good old days. One of the things I did when I was a kid. Of course, I really wasn't a kid. I was probably like 21 or something. But back in the day, there's two Dollar Generals in Vassar, yeah, and they only have 2 stoplights. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I can hardly stomach leftover turkey anymore, especially the dark meat. You just if I cooked it for you, you'd like it. Trust me, I'm a good cook. I've had so many people tell me I'd never eat that, but I can whip up some pretty good stuff. It's one of those other prepping skills you don't hear anybody talk about, being able to cook something edible out of whatever the heck you got. Essential Tam, I have deconstructed turkey in my freezer. Need a space for things to go to break it down. I trust you, bro. I appreciate that, Mikkel. Like I said, I think I could probably whip something up. Turkeys were a good price. I already had one in the freezer. Mom, she would sometimes, like if they only had really large turkeys, she'd request that they cut them in half, and they would. And back then, they had a saw that they used for poultry. Now, a lot of the meat places, they don't anymore, because so much stuff comes in prepackaged. But they used to cut up birds, so they would have a specific bandsaw, because you can't cut poultry on the same saw that you cut steaks and stuff on. There has to be some separation between that. But back then, a lot of the places still had some type of saw to cut the poultry. Mom would have them cut them in half or sometimes even in quarters. And then she would put them in the freezer. Like I said, she would have one half of the freezer would be stacked up with either chickens that we grew and she butchered or whatever she purchased, and then the quarter beef that we would get from the farmer this time of year. And then I would shoot a deer on top, and that'd be the cherry on top of the sundae yet. And this time of year out at the old place, the everything was full. The potato bins were full. We had squash. Everything was canned for the year. The freezer was full, and then we were smoking stuff out in the smokehouse. So, by the time mid-November rolled around, we were all set for the winter, set for the until next spring rolled around. Well, guys, I am going to get ready to shut this down here. I appreciate you guys stopping by here, having this conversation with me. I'm going to try to get a live stream in sometime the beginning of next week too. I'd maybe like to do a morning live stream when I get up in the morning and have coffee with you guys, just kind of go over what's going on in the world, whatever is going on at that particular day, because I'm off here still and have the time to do it. I think it'd be kind of fun to do one of those. But appreciate everybody stopping by here, taking their time to spend an hour with me here. Still on baby watch. I haven't heard anything. No news is good news, but I will post when we hear some more on the baby front. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys out there. I hope you guys always get something out of my videos, and you guys have a good one.